Hello friends, you're with the Lonesome Gamer, and today I'm playing 1860. And this is going to be the last video of the series. In a way, the endgame condition already has been triggered by the purchase of the first H train. Although that is not quite true, there are three ways to end the game. One is if the share value goes up to the top. The other one is if the bank breaks. Now we're really far from these. And the third one is this when the nationalization is done, the process of nationalization, and technically that process only starts when when the first H train is purchased, and in addition to that, all companies held by players have at least one train. So that's the thing that is not the case yet. We have the IOW, the VYSC, the FYN. All these companies do not have a train yet. So until that's not the case, nationalization does not start. But the FYN already has the cash to do it, so they can do it in the next turn. These guys also only need one more operating round to get out of their insolvency. And the IOW, well, it will take them kind of like 2 more ORs, I guess, and then nationalization will start. However, the Southern Railway formed. That is something that happens when the first H train is purchased. Honestly, I don't know a lot about British railroad histories, so I don't really know where the difference is to this and the nationalization. Rule-wise, that means after the stock round that follows the purchase of the first H train, it is no longer allowed to do any map actions. So tile placement, token placement, all that is no longer possible. And we've reached that point. Now we are in the stock round at that moment. So from now on, there's nothing more going on the map. And that also means that, except maybe from the change of trains, the revenue of the companies is fixed from now on. It is still possible that companies can swallow, they can purchase trains, and then of course that would change the situation, but not because of any changes on the map. So when we enter now the stock round, let's see what the position of the players is. We have this guy here, and I'm pretty sure he's in the worst position because he simply has the least money. He's got about 200 bucks, mainly because the IOW shares and the NGSDL shares were not producing at all in the last couple of ORs, basically. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay, this guy has 22 shares. This player here is 1, 2, 11, and I think, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 shares. But he's got a ton of cash. We're talking about, I don't know, 2, 4, 6, 700 bucks here. That's quite a difference. This guy has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and another 9. So he is sitting on 21 shares, and he's got, that's about close to 400. Well, he's got about $500, I would guess, maybe a little more. So I would say between the two, it's still a pretty open race. He is clearly behind, but it's interesting. It's not totally done yet. The reason is, from now on, the certificate limit is gone. So basically what we can expect now, because eventually all the companies will have a train, I guess simply all the certificates that are still available will be sold now, and we also can get the private here for $250. I think that's the least attractive one, but because it doesn't make any share value, the revenue isn't terrible. It's 25. Many companies make not as much as this does, but it's expensive. It costs $250 and doesn't gain share value. So I don't know, if it might not be that attractive. But as I said, yeah, there is no cert limit, so eventually probably everything will be sold out, because the shares that are still available are mostly very cheap. We got the NGSTL, which costs ridiculous $7. I mean, that's just insane. I think I've never seen it in a game that shares are actually traded for $7. We got the VYSC, which costs 26, and the S&C is a little more expensive actually. They cost $90, but there are only, I guess, 4 shares left here. Yeah. So therefore, compared to the money that the player have, yeah, there's just there are not that many shares left. So they're all going to be sold. It's just ridiculous to think that this company, all the shares combined of that companies, are $70. I mean, this is fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to do the stock round off camera. It's not going to be interesting. And remember that when you sell shares now, because of the formation of the Southern Railroad, the value does not drop anymore. So therefore, these companies, for example, will not, it's not possible that they go into bankruptcy. It could have been interesting for some players to drive these companies into bankruptcy and then restart them with fresh money, but we're not going to see that. So the shares from the bank pool are all gone now, and yeah, obviously there was a large demand. They only cost $7 or $26, and they're going to pay out good cash, and especially, and that is something in this game, it's kind of special. I mean, you have that in other games too, but the fact that you basically make a number of, or advance a number of spaces depending on your share value compared to the revenue, makes these low value companies more attractive than some of the others. I mean, this one here, for example, it will probably only go up a single space, so that's kind of like, I don't know, they make $16. These guys will go up 4 spaces, 1, 2. They make $40 in the first OR, and that's huge. Of course, that will slow down, but it's still pretty good. There is one thing now. I mean, we got these shares here. And for example, this one costs now 68, but the actual market value is 7. So that's it's a little painful to buy that thing. But of course, you know, eventually the value will be I mean, I'm not absolutely sure, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be beyond 68. If we go here, and then it will definitely make another 4 jump, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I mean, I guess until the nationalization starts, that will take 2 more ORs. So we definitely have 3 more ORs for every company to run, and that makes this company profitable. And this one, it's a similar thing. They have a par value of 62, but they're sitting here at 20. I mean, here, I don't know. The problem is they still have to buy a train. So they only have 2 runs that they are actually granted to do. And the first they will actually fall down. But even then, you know, I mean, they're going to end up at 60 at least. And they might be even one of the better performing companies, which then could give them a longer time to run. And then in the end, you still make money out of that company. There's no doubt here. The only question is, maybe compared to this one, the Fishborn, for example, could be a more attractive company. You know, if it pays out 3 times, or maybe even more, maybe it pays out $100. Yeah, maybe that's more attractive than investing in these 2 shares here. So yeah, actually, I think the Fishborn, I'm not sure, but it might be more, I wonder if it's more attractive than, it might be more attractive than the shares that are still out there. This one only has a 4 train. So it only runs for kind of like $19. That's less than the revenue here. I mean, yes, the value will go up about $10 every turn. So in general, the gain is a little bit higher than here, but this company will probably only run 3 more times, because I assume this is going to be one of the least 2 profitable companies. So that's going to be one of the first 2 companies that will be closed during the nationalization. So this will only run 3 more times, while the Fishborn will run to the very end of the game. It will always pay out. So I assume that the Fishborn will actually pay out kind of like 5 times, probably, maybe 6 times, I'm not quite sure. And therefore, I think it's the more attractive company here. So I'm going to buy this one now for $200. That's a lot of cash, but I do have the cash, so that doesn't really matter. And of course, at the end of the game, the value of the Fishborn will be $200, so I do not lose that money. There's actually another aspect that I just realized here. The S&C has a share value which is already higher than par value. It was par at 62, so you make basically immediately $28 by buying a share of the S&C, which makes it a much better deal than, for example, these 2 shares. Well, it's hard to say. I mean, if that one runs a 9 train, you know, I don't really know how this will work out. But I assume it's definitely a better deal than this one. And maybe it's also compared to the Fishbone. It's hard to tell. Maybe the Fishbone is still a little bit better, but I think that basically the additional, I don't know, $30 you make right when buying that makes it a good deal. We're at the end of the stock round, and this guy is holding 27 certificates, this guy is holding 26, and the guy down here is holding 28 certificates. Everything is sold out as expected. I still think he is in a better shape when it comes to share value and also cash. He's holding 90% of the CNN, which is far ahead. But we must also see in these games where you can make jumps kind of in relationship to your share value, this might all kind of melt together a little bit, right? Because they only gonna make one or probably only one jump ahead, while these others will jump 2 spaces. So this might become closer. We also have to see that, of course, some companies will simply operate more often than others. I'm not sure if this company has the best runs, for example. It is possible that at some point, at least some of the other companies will end up very close. So it's not like in other games where you basically just go one step. Every company only goes one step each OR, and then at that point in the game, this advantage would just remain the same. This is not like this in these type of games here with these type of stock markets here. Okay. So let's see. I guess we're gonna go into the first OR. As I said, on the map, there's nothing happening anymore. So it's basically just about getting trains into the companies. What we probably will see, I assume, because this guy, for example, has now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 60%. Now, I mean, he might consider buying with this company, buying the 4 train of that company in here, and then buying in here a 7 train. Especially because, I'm holding 60% of that company and this guy is holding 30%. So I'm basically making double the value of him, which is my main competitor, from that company. Here I'm holding 70%, but this guy only holds 20%, so I'm making more than 3 times the value. So it could be a good idea to bring this pretty low 4 train over here and then buy a 7 train in here, even if that costs me a run, because I think in the end I'm going to gain a run from that, because this company can then simply run longer. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that. So the first company is operated. That one operated the 7 train for the first time, and they made good money, 320, which makes them the most successful company. Not a big surprise. I mean, they have the best train. They make just 10 more bucks than this one with the 6 train though. And they actually managed to make a quadruple jump here. So that made it now the second most value company. And now the IOW is running, and it seems actually I miscalculated here. I thought they were getting 200 bucks now in the during the insolvency step, but actually because we're now in H, they are actually making 220. And that is now enough for them to buy a large train. So that brings this guy now in a better position than I thought he is. He kind of makes I don't know if it changes a lot in the end. Maybe not. We'll see. I mean, okay, anyway, now he's got to spend 800 bucks here. And that also means that probably we all have one less run than we expected, or one less turn. But I'm not sure about that because we might see some train shuffling that I didn't take into account before. So, okay, this guy is sitting now also on a 7 train, but of course they fell back, they couldn't pay out. These guys also fall back, but they got a lot of cash and they can now also afford a large train. Let's see, yeah, they got tons of money here. Okay. There we go. Here, also insolvent. So that means they get 220. But now my idea was to buy the train here from the Shanklin and Chail, which is perfectly legal. So that 4 train here. And just can take basically all I have. That's enough to get this company a 7 train and the other company is out of insolvency. But they fall back. And they are just, as you can see here, you know, they were just one space before bankruptcy now. And now it's the Newport and God's Hill with their 5 train. And they also just one step from bankruptcy. If they wouldn't have bought the 5 train over last train, they would have been, last turn, they would have been bankrupt by now. But yeah, the player decided to shuffle trains a little bit so that he would not have lost the 4 shares that he already had of that company. And now he can run the 5 train. And it's not in a terrible, it's actually in a pretty good position. It's kind of centered here, so they can kind of do something like this here and then maybe, I don't know. Well, I gotta find a good route for those guys. Yeah, okay, I guess the best that I can get is if I start over here, 1, 2, skip this one here, and then 3, 4, and then 5. Now I can take the 260s. So that means it's 6, 9, 12, 13, 16, 17, and that's 23. Now, during the nationalization, we're going to lose the dots, I guess, and then I'm not going to make quite as much anymore, but it's still, oops, so 23 here. And of course I'm going to pay that out. Okay, we go into operating round 2, and still not all the companies do have a train. The Shanklin and Chail does not have one, so we got to go through this again. But okay, I mean, this is going to be fast now. The values are now all fixed, so the only thing we just pay out, and the Shanklin and Chail will buy their train. Okay, so the CNN and the IWNJ have operated, and now the S&C will buy a train, and that means that now all the companies held by players have a train. Actually, this is just checked by the end of the operating round. So we're going to play this operating round to an end, and then we're going to see a nationalization. So the IOW does now their first run with a 7 train. I just want to show you that they start here at the right pier and then go 1, 2, 3. You can take that dot here. They skip this. Is that what they do? Wait a minute. No, I don't think so. 1, 2, 3, 4. They take the B here, skip that, and then 5, 6, 7. So they can take the 2 dots here. Yeah, and that's how they run. So that's 9, 13, 16, 19, 20, 23, 24. That's exactly 30. That's not too great, actually. I was hoping for a better run there. That's a little weird. I mean, they only can take one of the 60 spaces. They didn't manage to upgrade right. Yeah, it's not that awesome. But okay, they got to take 2 of the B spaces, which are also not that great. So I guess that might be the reason. So then the FYN is operating a 7 train, also for the first time. So I guess they start here, 1, 2, 3, and they can take a dot here, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that gives them the 2 60 spaces, and yeah, I guess that's probably as good as it gets for them. That's 8, 12, 13, 16, 17, 20, 23, 29. Oh gosh. Yeah, it seems like it's not getting better here. But I cannot find better runs here. What if I go down here and skip that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't think that's good. No, I don't think so. I guess the 29 is the best I get here. I mean, you know, this is just a poor city. That kind of negates the 60 here. It's just like running 2 40 cities. So in the end, that's not so great. But yeah, I just have that single dot out here. So that, I mean, I'm just not in such a great position. Okay, and now the last company is the VYSC. They only have a 4 train. And I don't think we can expect a lot from those guys. They're sitting here and they are... It's going to be not a good run, obviously. I mean, they can start here in Newport and kind of go like this through here, then here. And I guess eventually they're going to end up here in Ventnor. Yeah. So that's 6, 7, 8, 12, 13, 17. Okay, so now we're going into the process of nationalization. And the way that works, I already explained that. But I'm going to do it again now. So from now on, the bank is unlimited. So the game cannot end that way by the bank running out of money. And we calculate the route of the trains now. I think, no, trains can also no longer swallow and buy additional trains. We simply calculate the route, and that is then marked here. Let me check that. Now, actually, companies could still buy trains from the pool, not from other companies, from the pool, but they're not allowed to withhold. So if a company for some reason should still have now the cash, $800, they could still buy that, but yeah, they can't swallow. And this is not the case in this situation we have here, and there are probably not many situations where that would be the case. So in addition to these rules, the halts are no longer counted at all. And here again, it's a little bit of a question if that rule also applies to the expansion with the special trains. In the base game, you have plus trains, so you got, I don't know, a 4+5 train, for example. And from now on, only the large number, the first number, would count. So the companies could only run 4 stations and not, in addition, take all these additional dots. Of course, if they don't have 4 stations, they can still take a dot instead, but only the large number would count. And because the expansion doesn't say this is different here, it explicitly says that the halts do not count anymore, but it doesn't speak about this other rule. So therefore, I think, I think I will also simply do it that way. So only the big numbers count and the halts do not count anymore. So basically the revenue for every company will go down a little bit now. And yeah, then we kind of mark this over here, and we will then operate the companies, and at the end of every operating round, the 2 companies which make the lowest value will no longer operate during the game. So that means we have basically in the first operating round now 8 companies operating, after that 6, then 4, and in the last operating round only the 2 best performing companies are still operating. I gotta check how that works if there's a tie. I'm not sure if we see one, but it's not impossible. We do have one down here, but that's not a problem. But for example, if we have, yeah, I mean, because these were the last 2, but if, for example, the 5th and the 6th companies would be tied, that, yeah, then I'm not sure about how that would work. Does that make sense? No, that makes no sense. If the 6th and the 7th company should be tied, I gotta check that and see. But first, we gotta calculate again the route without the dots now, and then we get some kind of result here. Okay, so what happens is, and that's basically bad for the ones that are tied with others. First of all, these 2, I mean, now, first of all, every company will operate once. After that, these 2 will no longer operate. And then, if there's a tie, and one of the tied companies has to stop operating, that means all tied companies stop operating. So that means we will only see these 2, we will see these 3 stop operating after the second round, then the other 2, and then there is one more company that will operate to the very end. So let's see, we got here this one, the FYN pays out, no, that's not the FYN, that is the VYSC. They pay out 15 bucks with their 4 train over here. So they basically simply run 1, I mean that's a 10, 1, 2, and then 3, and then down. Well, wait a minute. Actually, I think I even messed this up. That is 5, 8. So they can run for, wait a minute, that makes no sense. Did I just 5? How did I miscalculate here? I don't know why I think that was 15. Okay, that's 5, 8. That's 14. That's all they can do. Okay, so they run only for 14 bucks. And these guys then here, they run for 16, starting here, going here, skipping this one, then taking that one here, and then going here. They could also go like this, skip that one and take this one. It wouldn't make a difference. Then we got here the NGSTL located here. They run for 21. They got a 5 train. And what was their run? I think they went from here 1, 2, 3. They skipped that one and then 4, and then they take the 60 here. Pretty sure that's what they did. The Shanklin and Chale, that was their first run with a 7 train. They started down here, and here it's so easy to kind of miss things, right? I thought, okay, I gotta do a 7 train and I'm gonna start here and then go all the way here. But actually I can start here and simply skip this one. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, and then it was, I think 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See the CNN also running for 27. So here he has now some kind of disadvantage because, yeah, that company will close 2 turns earlier than the IWNJ held by this player. So this is clearly bad. On the other hand, this guy has the BHIR, which will close immediately after the first run. But it's only 1 run difference, right? That is kind of crazy here. So they run for 28. And they start here. They have a 6 train. 1, 2. Yeah, 1, 2. I think they went down here. 3. What did these fuckers do? Maybe I can just also recalculate that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think they went like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I wonder if I can do better if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I think there's actually no difference because this is 90 and that is 90. If I had 10 more, I could run once more, which would be terribly valuable, but I just don't know how to do that. I have to start here because that's my hometown, and I just cannot find a better run here. So, yeah. 1, 2, 3. No, 4, 5. I don't think that's better. So yeah, I guess these guys run for 27. Then the FYN, they got a 7 train again. They run for 28. I mean, 27 isn't bad with a 6 train there, compared that others just make $1 or $2 or 10 or 20 bucks more. So the FYN, they run for 28. They start down here, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Wait a minute, what? 4, 5, 6, 7. I think they went like that. Or I think 1, 2, 3. Maybe if they skip here, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now you have to, you know, I mean, it's so hard. No, they cannot. They cannot skip here and here. So no, that's not possible. The skipping is a really tricky part in this game. So that makes it pretty hard to calculate the routes. It's not always intuitive how to do that. So yeah, that can be tough. So, but I think it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7. Pretty sure about that. Or 7, doesn't matter. So that's 28. We see then the IOW. They do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and to Newport 7. And that's also 28. And the best company runs for 29. The IWNJ. They start here, 1, 2, 3. Let me see. Yeah, 4, 5, and then 6, 7. Yeah, I think that's how they went. Yeah, that was 29, and so I'm gonna now basically pay out simply the players depending on how often the companies run. I'm not going to go through every single stock round. So yeah, and then do the share value adjustments, and then basically be back with the final result. This is a pretty crazy thing that's going on here. This guy here, the owner of this S&C and the CNN, I mean, he holds 90% of the CNN, and if the S&C would have earned $10 less, then the CNN would have had an additional run. That's pretty crazy if you think about that. But because they're tied, basically the S&C kind of destroys also the CNN. That's oh boy. I mean, again, you know, if you are extremely good in planning, you can do these things right, and so that something like this would not have happened. But okay, so actually it was a pretty close race. I can show you here on my phone. So player 1, the guy who I thought was doing absolutely terrible, I mean, he lost, but he was just about $500 behind from, I mean, 6,000. You can see, I thought the guy who was a clear winner, player 2, the owner of these guys, he's now only sitting on 6,907, while player 3 made 7,097. And in cash, it was more or less equal. I really underestimated the influence of the nationalization. It is a big deal if you get 1 or 2 more operating rounds compared to other players. For example, this guy here, I mean, okay, that kind of applies to both. They are heavily invested in these really poor companies that only ran once. He only had 1 share of each of those, so that wasn't so terrible for him. On the other hand, he, for example, had these two companies massively that were doing really, really well toward the end. And this guy here held 60% of the most valuable company. And in the end, and that's the real crazy aspect, I guess, I'm not absolutely sure, but I'm pretty sure about that. In the end, the fact that this company made the same amount of cash as this company, that simple fact did cost him the game. If that company would have made $10 less, just $10 less, that company would have had another run. That would have meant he would have gotten 90% of that run, and he is just $190 behind. So yeah, that would have been it. That would have been, and he would have also gotten more an additional jump. So yeah, absolutely. That's yeah, that's what did actually cost him the game. Yeah, I think we can be totally clear about that. That is crazy. $10 less here, and he would have won the game. Okay, I mean, that is super weird. That went really, really bad for him. So what can I say? I mean, this tells you a lot about how crazy this game actually is. And wow. Just some quick thoughts about that. I can say I really like this game. It's not one of my favorites. There are a lot of things that I really like, but there are also a couple of things that I don't like. Maybe I can already say, you know, I in general, I prefer games where you have, for example, mergers, where you have different types of companies, you know, minor companies, maybe a state railroad, things like that. This is more just to my taste. This is not that this is a bad game, but it's just my personal preference. And you don't have these things here, so that's why it's not one of my favorite games, I guess. Another problem I have is the map. Again, kind of a personal thing. I love big maps, you know, where you got this epic feeling that you build long railroad routes. And that is just something that I personally enjoy. Another thing, then, I think this is not just a personal preference. I think you could say that calculating route on this map is a little bit problematic. First of all, and this is probably the most important aspect, is the fact that you can skip tokens. And with one of your trains, and it can be, especially if you have a couple of trains, I think it can be pretty hard to actually figure out how to optimize your route. And I think I might have made some mistakes here. I think in the end I got it right, but even in the last round I kind of, I could go that way, you know, and so I think I might have kind of before the end, I might have had a few rounds that were not quite optimized. So this is a tricky thing to think about. And also the additional halts and all that, you know, there's a lot to consider when it comes to this kind of simple process of route calculation, or the thing that should be not too hard. And it always is a little bit of a pain because, you know, it's kind of like this just, you know, this mechanical thing which always turns people off when they do 18xx. And here it's even harder than in many other games. Now, we got the expansion here, and that makes it easier than the base game. The base game, it goes up to a 9 train, and you got then limited number of additional stops or halts. And here, yeah, you got less large locations and an unlimited number of stops or halts. And I think that makes the calculation a little bit easier. And it also takes away from this frustrating feeling that you cannot run your train to the full extent, because the map can be so closed up that you cannot really run big trains that great. And now in this game, actually, there wasn't that much tokening going on. The money was very tight. I've seen games where there was still a couple of additional tokens placed. You know, we still have 2 tokens, another token in each of those. So overall, there were actually not too many tokens placed. And if there are more tokens on the board, the route calculation gets even more crazy, because then you got to think about all that. Okay, if I skip that token, how far can I go then? And can I go this way? And maybe I can skip this token instead. And it just drives you crazy. This is this rule with the token skipping. If that is not there, it becomes much more intuitive and obvious which way to go. And that is something that, that makes this game hard for me. But there are also a couple of things that I really like, and I think obviously the coolest feature of the game is this tool that you can bring companies into bankruptcy, and then that you can start them, restart them immediately. Basically, if you do it in a clever way, you can restart them in the same operating round, in the same stock round. So the fact that you can actually have a couple of stock rounds in a row is just so much fun. You know, that you can say, okay, I buy stock and sell stocks and bring that down, the price down, and then somebody else drives the company into bankruptcy, which starts a new stock round, and then I can again buy shares of that first company and bring the price further down, and eventually, maybe over the course of a couple of stock rounds, I can then in this way bring a company into bankruptcy. And we've seen that, and that is a lot of fun, I think. But you got to prepare for that, and maybe this is actually something I could have done even better if I would not have parred the companies quite as high when they started the second time. Maybe a little bit lower, you know, then you can do that more easy. But it's hard to get a feel for that, and but I think this is kind of the secret. The secret key to the game. It's not real. I mean, once you get it, it's pretty obvious. But I think for players who play that the first couple of times, it's not so clear that you can get several stock rounds in a row, and that you can use that to buy and sell and buy and sell, and then bring companies that are maybe here into a bankruptcy throughout that whole process, and that you might get an advantage out of this. So this is really a fun idea, and that's something that I like a lot. And I think this is actually completely unique to this game. That's at least in this specific way. I also like these kind of, I mean, the double jumps, quadruple jumps, the linear stock markets. I enjoy that quite a bit. I like the nationalization process. It really can shakes up at the end quite a bit, and it shows how valuable good routes in this game are. it's not just about pushing your share value, and that is often the case in these linear stock markets where you can make double or triple jumps. You know, swallowing is basically okay in these games because it's easy to get up again. And especially with this nationalization process, where you simply get additional runs when you have a good route and you make a lot of revenue, you know, the share value seems to be even less important than a high payout. And that's an interesting aspect of the game. Very often, you know, it's more, I mean, it's hard to tell, but yeah, I mean, maybe the share value in many games is a little more important, just a tiny little bit more important than doing a good payout. It's hard to say. I mean, of course, if you pay out massive amounts of cash compared to the others, you can still win even with a worse share value. But most of the time, I have the feeling the players who have the best share value also win the game. But in these games, and especially here with the nationalization, that is not necessarily the case because of these additional runs that you gain. And of course, then it will also pump up your share value, right? Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, that's, what can I say? I mean, this is definitely a good game. I can recommend it, especially for a lower player count. You know, I mean, the maximum number of players is 4, but it works also fine with 2. It's kind of interesting if you play with 2, actually. The dynamics are a little bit different, but they're still fun and cool. So it's not, it's not exactly one of my favorites because it lacks a few mechanisms that I enjoy in general in 18xx games. And the route calculation is tricky, but it is, in my opinion, a really, really good game. But my experience tells me it's not a short game. You know, you might think, okay, it's a small map, you know, this is something I can play in 2 hours or something. I usually these games take you your standard 18xx maybe 4 hours, 5 hours. That's I have already played this even longer, so that can be. It's not a short game, let's say it that way. It's also not a terribly long game, but yeah, okay, that's pretty much all I can say. A really good game, can absolutely recommend that. So I hope to see you on the next video or on lonesomegamer.com. Bye.